Yo, we coming at you all with a special outside the box, out the blue episode of the Freedom Train podcast series. I'm Joseph Ward, joined by Patrick Irvin, who's virtual, and he's the disembodied voice. And we got the Professor Carl Tone Jones in the house with us tonight. What up, fellas?
What's going on, brother? Let's get it.
What it is, man. Y'all see the title, man. Derrick Chauvin has been found guilty. And we want to talk about the trial and the aftermath and everything surrounding it. We got to get into it. But of course, we got to do our housekeeping. So the Freedom Train podcast series is brought to you by PAX Inc. That's PACTSINC. And PAX Inc. is a Black development organization aimed at developing the Black community to its maximum potential through a focus on education and economics with a trace of hard work, honesty, and integrity. For more information, make sure you visit the website at www.pactsinc.org. You're going to learn more about the organization, their codes of conduct, how to become a member yourself, how you can donate to the organization, how to get involved in several initiatives that they have and take advantage of that Learning Center tab and support them through the store, as well as the Amazon Smile program. Go to paxinc.org and click on the Amazon Smile picture that you will see, and it'll take you to the site. You can register. Once you register, you will be able to donate a portion of your proceeds to any nonprofit, namely PAX Inc., that you choose every time you make a purchase. So Amazon Smile, all of that is going on. And make sure y'all visit our Freedom Train website at www.freedomtrainradio.com. You got some of the greatest podcasting in the world going on. All right, but let's go ahead and get to it, man. Ain't no sense of walking around it. Let's go ahead and get to it. So a lot of people was watching. I was watching the network. Did y'all two gentlemen watch the trial? Watch at least the verdict?
Yeah. I watched the trial. It's too damn dark. Can't do glasses. I watched the trial. I tried. Yeah, y'all gotta forgive me. These allergies are killing me. Yeah, I watched the trial and bits and pieces, but I typically got the highlights afterwards. And so I was able to catch most of the trial, most of the briefings and things of that nature. So I followed it, from start to finish. So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with all the ongoings with the particular trial that we're talking about here.
Okay, Pat, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched some of it. But I'm familiar with it. I didn't watch it because, like I said, I view it along with all of the videos of people getting murdered, death, killed, this trauma porn. So I kept up with it, but I didn't actually watch the trial.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Same deal.
Yeah, well, I didn't watch the trial at all. Like, I knew what was going on. Same thing. I didn't watch it, but I did watch the actual verdict part. Today it happened like the last 10 minutes before we was about to get off of work, like 4:50 Eastern time. And all right, so Chauvin is found guilty on three counts on the three charges. He hasn't been convicted yet.
No, he's been convicted.
I mean sentenced. That's what I mean. Yeah. Excuse me. He hasn't been sentenced yet, but he has been convicted. But one of the things we were talking about earlier, and I want to get into is, Pat, you were talking about you feel room has been left for an appeal. Could you kind of elaborate on that?
Actually, yeah, PC was talking specifically about that. Because he was talking about Auntie Maxine.
What she did.
Go ahead, PC. Fill him in.
Well, basically, she was asked questions by the jury yesterday. I mean, not the jury, but the press, as they were mounting protests out in California, and they were asking her about what the reaction, what reaction should she expect, and basically she said she was hoping for a guilty verdict, but in regards to that, if it wasn't a guilty verdict, then they would have to, the people would have to apply more pressure. And basically what it alluded to was, people taking it to the streets. And one of the things that was revealed during the closing arguments was the fact that those comments were made, and the judge didn't basically. What the judge said was at the end of the trial that because of those statements and the potential to inflame the jury, the judge basically stated that this is a good grounds for an appeal for the defense. So basically, and they've been trying to toss that around. This isn't the first part. I mean, they were talking about the fact that they were about to have a mistrial just last week when the prosecutors were trying to bring new evidence to sort of counter the carbon monoxide claims that were made, that a star witness for the defense had made. So they were looking for technicalities to create a situation or circumstance where they could sort of like circumvent the whole notion of this actually making it to the jury, the judgment aspect of it. So
yeah, like we talked about a couple shows ago, when I was in the laundromat, the wash house. I would say the wash house. I heard some of the toxicologists and the pulmonologists talking about or disputing some of the claims the defense had, saying, well, he died because he had drugs in his system. And that didn't make no damn sense to me. Like, look, we've been around drugs a lot in our lives. And I rarely, unless you just overdose, and I rarely see people just fall out because they got drugs in their system, unless it's, an excessive amount. But there's no way, if George Floyd was consistently using drugs, that's just the day his body just decided to die under the circumstances of a cop's knee on his neck. Like, come on, man, stop playing with our intelligence. But it seems like the defense seemed weak as hell. So he's convicted, and here we are. I mean,
well, let's really dig into that for a second, because and this is why I'm not jumping for joy like a lot of other people. This dude was a sacrificial lamb. He was telling somebody that earlier. He was a sacrificial lamb, not because they needed to preserve the integrity of the law and the legal system in regards to police conduct. He was a sacrificial lamb mostly because he did what is typically acceptable by American standards. He lynched a black man. And as a police officer, there have been several different ways that they could get away with lynching black men. But the onus of it was to always create a circumstantial doubt, or to create plausible deniability that it was actually a straight up lynching. So you would have the cops who, I broke into the wrong apartment. You would have the cops who, I was fearing for my life. I thought he had a gun. You had the cops that, got into some struggles. So they were always able to say that they feared for their life. What this dude did was real blatant. He applied, when you watch the video, and I hated the fact that I had to watch the video, he applied more pressure to this man's neck. And then you had several opportunities for public health officials who were on the scene, firefighters, EMTs, and all. You had several opportunities for all of them to step in. And the callous nature of them. And what people don't really talk about is that he's the one that dragged George Floyd's body to the ambulance. He's the one that dragged his and basically threw him on the stretcher. He's the one who dragged him, and threw his lifeless body on the stretcher. When you see somebody perform an act like that, that's so blatant, not even the United States of America can hide their hand from that rock that was thrown. So he was a sacrificial lamb, and I basically a lesson to other law enforcement to not be sloppy. This wasn't something for us. They basically threw the case. It would have been impossible to walk out of that courtroom and say that they couldn't find this man guilty on any of the charges, let alone all three.
What you got to add to that, Pat? Pat playing with himself.
We're trying to be serious here, but we have what we really have to understand. This wasn't, and I need to be careful about this part because for the family of George Floyd, this was a victory.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's
For the family,
there's victory in this.
yeah, family of specifically for the family of George Floyd. They got what Breonna Taylor didn't get. They got what Mike Brown didn't get.
What thousands of people didn't get.
Yeah. So they were able to get a guilty plea. And I promise you, if it wasn't for that film, they would have got away with it.
Yeah, definitely. But I kind of look at it like this. It's a whole battle going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you have individual victories within the battle. Right. Now, not saying you can't celebrate these individual victories within the battle, but you can't get lost in the celebration of these individual victories or even narrow-mindedly look at these individual victories as if they are a representation of the total battle.
No, not even close.
But we all got social media.
Yeah.
We all know. And see, going back, these narratives, we have to stop creating false narratives based off of how we feel and individual experiences and look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this was, I look at it as more of a white progress thing than a black progress thing. I mean, like you said, it was kind of hard for them not to convict him on something on this. I mean, with the blatant evidence, but we've seen that before. We've seen that before in America, blatant evidence and police officers still not being convicted. But it's, don't get lost in the sauce. This is, if you can go look at numbers, and we're gonna get into numbers in a minute, but we can go look at numbers and see that this is an individual battle on the victory field. And if you want to celebrate it, cool, but don't lose sight of the total battle.
Well, two things. Oh, go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry. You're back.
No. yeah. Nah, I'm this is why I ain't on video. But anyways, one of the things for me, and you guys, I lost you for a second, so I might repeat something that's already been said. But one of the things for me is, you guys talked about the Maxine Waters situation, and Joe, you're talking about the white progress versus black progress, which that's my thing right there. That's my shenanigans. So I do that. But the other thing for me is just to me, this feels like, while it is a battle on the battlefield, it's a battle that was designed for us to lose, or for them to lose, to give us a false sense of security. And I say that because not only because of all of the constant hints about a mistrial, and then the Maxine water situation, and then you look at it, the type of global attention that this situation got when it went down, it put America in a place where there was really no choice, like PC said, but it still left the back door open because the jury wasn't isolated. You know what I'm saying? So even if Maxine Waters had not said what she said, the lack of a sequestration of the jury still opens the door for a savvy attorney to be like, the political situations that were going on at the time, the social environment that we were in, and the lack of sequestration by the jury of the jury, it was literally impossible for my client to get a fair trial. And that would be a fair argument to make.
Oh, definitely. And see, that's if we're going to talk about the technicalities of the case, you definitely can go there. One of the things I want to speak about it because I don't necessarily think this was like a white progress. I think this was more so the powers understanding that, excuse me, like we spoke about before, he crossed the line because it's all supposed to look incidental. When you lynch one of us in this day and age, it's not illegal to lynch us. But and I say that, understanding the Constitution, understanding Dred Scott decision, understanding Plessy versus Ferguson, understanding all the different precedents that have been established. Black lives really don't matter in the grand scheme of protecting this whole caricature picture of what America's supposed to represent. But they're not supposed to be blatant and show their disregard that blatantly. And I just got to keep coming back to that, because I feel as though if he had not been so blatant, he probably wouldn't have ever lost his job. To be perfectly honest. And these are some of the things that, when we start looking at and digging and getting to the rabbit hole a little bit, understanding, and having political education in regards to how we fit in this particular system and power structure. And so when I see that when I see us getting killed, I mean, let's be real. The trial didn't stop anything. Less than 10 miles from where they were, there was another young brother killed just last week. You know what I'm saying? And you had people, tensions mounting, protests mounting for that particular situation and incident. So it's not in the grand scheme of things. This is one that, it serves several purposes. One, you were able to, create this narrative that Black people can receive justice for being wrongly murdered, in this particular environment, for which I heard there was a sister that said now that this situation has occurred with the jury verdict, that she can tell her daughter that she can, live free and trust the system of justice in America.
See, that's that stuff right there. That's that stuff. All right. So we forgot we was just here 2 years ago with the Botham Jean case. Have we forgot that quick? We were just here 2 years ago with the Botham Jean case. Yeah. Right? And people were saying some of the same things because Amber Geiger got convicted. People were saying, well, this is a step moving forward. These are things. This is the new day in America, blah, 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 blah. But here we are again. And how many Black people have been killed since Botham Jean? How many Black people have been killed since George Floyd? The thing is we can't get caught up in just the individual things. Like we have to stop that. Like come on, man. Come on, man.
You've not seen the parties and the streamers going down the major streets and intersections in your city.
Like you got to. We have to keep our eyes on the bigger picture. That's gonna be one thing I'm hammering home this whole podcast. We got to keep our eyes on the bigger picture. Go ahead, Pat.
But see, this is where, and I'm gonna be totally transparent. And when we talked about this trial, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Last week, whenever the podcast dropped, and we talked about all of the things that were happening in the world that we didn't want to talk about and why we didn't want to talk about them.
Yeah.
And we talked about this trial. And I said one of the reasons why I don't want to talk about it is because it's not going to mean anything in the long run. And from a macro level, from a micro level, sure. And it doesn't happen frequently that an officer is convicted. So even in that, I could understand people raising their eyebrows and being like, and maybe exploring or wondering or thinking about it. I can even understand a little bit of excitement at the novelty of it. What bothers me is the sheer jubilation that people are experiencing, because to me, that showcases an emotional attachment that is dangerous. Now, the other issue I'm having is, and I'm going to be transparent about this as well, and they'll tell you, I didn't really want to do a show right now because I knew Black people wanted to be excited. I knew that we wasn't going to say nothing that they wanted to hear. And I'm just getting tired of Black folk being like, y'all always raining on my parade. So I'm at the point now where I'm like, no, all right, have your parade. Have your parade. Now, when it gets shot up by a crazy white person, you know what I'm saying? Do what it do, but have your parade. But if we, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm like, all right, so if we gonna have a conversation, we kind of like, I don't want to half-ass it, which is what I was thinking about doing. The fact of the matter is, we still care far too much about white acceptance, white approval, white progress. When you look at all of this, because let's be clear, even to those people saying that I can finally start the mourning process now that justice has been served, there's no such thing as justice for a loss of life that involves any sort of incarceration. Let's stop the madness. If somebody kills one of your family members, them going to jail doesn't bring your family member back. So let's eliminate this whole justice thing from your vocabulary, and then let's also acknowledge that justice means different things to different people. This trial, to me, is not about the entirety of the black community in the way that black
Nah,
people are making it.
nah, it's about
This this you know what I'm saying? Like, is
yeah.
so if somebody from the George Floyd family feels some type of way, they have all rights and entitlements to feel some type of way. You know what I'm saying? It's the rest of us that are finding some kind of way to twist this around into making it into a situation where we can be excited and we can party and we can have fun and we can tell our kids all of the things that we know we shouldn't say, but it feels good to say it. Like America cares about you, or
I mean,
America loves you, or you can have justice in America. You know what I'm saying?
we're gonna
Like,
be back.
what are we doing?
We're gonna be right back here in a little bit when they go to trial for the young man who just was killed by the white cop, or white lady cop. But we're gonna be right
What
back here in
about
a little bit.
when the appeal happens? What about when the sentencing happens and he may or may not get a sentence that you think is sufficiently justifiable for what he did? You know what I'm saying? What about all of the other things that are going to come? What happens if you wake up tomorrow and find out more than likely is going to happen that cops killed another black person
Yeah,
somewhere
well,
else?
that's one of my main things is let's not act like this means that police officers will be held accountable for their actions against black people. Let's not get lost in that. Let's not believe that. Let's not create the narrative. This is not this is not the time for us to be living in fantasy land or living in an ideal of what we think America should be. This is us should be focusing in on what's actually happening to us because it's continuously happening to us over and over and over again. I mean that's the I don't know no other way to put that.
Well, one of the things that sort of tempers my enthusiasm to anything is the fact that how fast we forgot about the ongoings of what happened just last year, the year 2020, calendar year 2020, how we were so quick to push that to the back of our memories, all the different things that happened. So I'm not surprised. I kind of look to our community as more so always looking for a reason to celebrate some type of justice, even if on the surface it's not really tangible justice. And because I know that most black people don't feel as though we deserve to have basic human rights subconsciously. They won't say it out of their mouths, but when you hear a person say, well, at least they did this for us, or at least we got this verdict, or at least we got that, that means that we don't believe that you deserve to get it all the time. And when you don't deserve to get it all the time, that means you basically feel as though you're less than. And there's the people who occupy from that place, that space of feeling as though they're not worthy of receiving justice and liberty and liberation all the time. They will see any crumbs as a full meal. They'll see any particular any movement in that direction as progress or something of that nature. And it's not, you're right, it's not based in reality. It's actually based in a childlike fantasy. But we get critiqued because we hold black people to a high standard of intellectualism. We hold black people to a high standard of logic. and we hold black people to a higher standing of understanding the world around them and being responsible for what happens in the world around them. And so, yeah, we come off as Debbie Downers, we come off as, killjoys in moments like this, but somebody has to say it. This was not a victory for black people. This was a victory for the Floyd family. And as black people, we really need to understand it took them 3 weeks to convict somebody for which all you need to really do is watch 10 minutes of video. That's all the evidence you needed. It took them 3 weeks to get a conviction. You know what I'm saying? That should be the reality check right there. And, when we start talking about, we have, and let's be clear, we have a lot of radical reformers who mask themselves in this particular push under the concepts of black liberation, but they're basically, they don't want the system to particularly change. They see too many benefits from it. Right. And the responsibility that we would have to shelve if we actually did things for ourselves. Most people don't want to be responsible for the things that's going on in their lives now. So to deal with this, you actually see the people. Basically, this is black people saying, all right, we keep getting our ass whooped. We got one punch in and we want to dance, but the fight is still going on. We're still getting our asses kicked in every other round. We just happened to hit them with a shot. They had a standing 8 count. And, they were instructed from their corner to take the standing 8 count because they was really ready to get up on 3. You know what I'm saying? So we got to really just, be the adults to bridge this conversation to the rest of the people who are willing to listen and understand the position we're coming from.
Yeah. We like overall, we want to be safe in America. Overall, we want that liberation that we've been seeking in America. I know what you're talking about, but I'm in the sense, especially folk like us, that's what we want. Now, people's actions ain't showing that. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but overall, the idea and the whole thing is, we want freedom. We want to be liberated from the system of white supremacy. Those who think like us. Others, we got other folk who just want to be left alone and be comfortable in the system of white supremacy. So we do got those factions going on like that.
Well, hold on. I don't think we necessarily want to be free like that. I think we want to be free like a child who wants to be able to do whatever they want.
Well, yeah,
we don't want, and I'm talking about the masses. I'm talking about even the conscious sector. We don't want the responsibility that comes with being the parent that gets to set and dictate rules and boundaries because they have a responsibility to taking care of the house. We want access to the entire house. We want access to government come and go as we please. We don't want the responsibility that comes with taking care of the manor. And that's what you see in a lot of these particular things. Like basically, there are people who think the system is not perfect, but they rather the system run the way it does than have to be responsible for creating or operating a system of their own. That's what we're dealing with in our community. And when you start, so when you see these particular cases, people are crying, talking about it gives them hope. Well, they're hoping that from this day forward, the masters of the manor treat us a little better. We all know that's not happening. But, and honestly, I'm just going to slide this in real quick before we move on. This can actually have a really bad adverse effect, similar to the aftermath of the O.J. Simpson murder trial for, his ex-wife. You know what I'm saying? Because what happens is when white folk feel like they took a loss, they start changing the infrastructure. They start going out to the polls. They create different types of policies that actually create more oppression to us while we're out partying and celebrating like we went. They just went back to the tool shed and started getting to work.
You mean like Ron DeSantis basically making it illegal to protest?
Right.
That just happened down here. But now but remember though now, and I do agree that there are a lot of black folk who just looking for a comfortable place, but there's always those who want that comfortable place, and that's us, like folk like us. We we want that real liberation. So that's what I'm speaking to, folk like us who want the real
No,
liberation. But I
for
do
me,
understand that there are people who just want to be comfortable.
I don't think there are a lot of people that really want, because we were talking. I was talking about this earlier with a group of ladies that I was talking, or two ladies that I was talking to about the case, and I just don't like. Everything looks different for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Everything looks different to everybody. And even when we use terms, basic terms like liberation, they mean different things. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that have the same vision of a liberated community that we necessarily have. And I don't think that. And here's the other thing that I wanted to say. It's not even that I don't want people to have moments of levity and excitement. My thing, really, if I'm being honest, my thing is that we tend to have a moral victory, which is what I consider this to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then we tend to lose sight of the target for far too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm hoping to happen is not that people don't get excited, because I would be wrong to tell you not to feel however you feel. How There's a reason why you feel the way you feel. Now I think we should address those reasons, because I do think some people have very, very, very negative reasons, are very, very, very not healthy reasons for the happiness that they're feeling right now. I think a lot of that is centered around getting a pat on the head, getting some excitement, getting some approval. Like, I think there are a lot of real negative reasons, and digging into those reasons is probably the topic of a series of shows, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is, okay, you happy. Be happy, but be vigilant. Pay
Yeah.
attention to what else is going on. Like, don't think that this is going to solve the problems of race in America, which, and I know a lot of people would listen to this and say, nobody's thinking that. Bullshit. I've
Right.
Right.
I've been sent
Right.
I've been sent
Right.
pictures. I've had conversations in the last 3-4 hours. Even before the verdict was announced, when it came out that the verdict was going to be announced today, I had a conversation with somebody about what it could potentially mean. There are people out there that really legitimately think
Yeah.
that this conviction means that things are different,
And they're better.
Mm-hmm.
are
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. And let's not lose sight of the fact that there were 3 other cops there that their trial still supposedly in the process. They're still processing their trials right now. You had Derrick Chauvin, who was already locked down, supposedly. You had J. Alexander Kung or Kuing or whatever the hell, Thomas Lane, and then we had Tu Tao, who was the Asian cop. Hey, I'm butchering the names. But when you think about, and that's another aspect, the cops who stand by and watch the shit happen. And I think you hit on a great part, Pat, a great point when you start talking about how we really just want to. This is the ultimate Borg mentality. But in the Borg, for those who are not Star Trek Trekkies, the Borg was this like race of super machines, sort of like androids, who would come and invade a star system or a planet, and they would then convert everybody to become part of the Borg. And their whole saying was assimilation. You're going to be assimilated. And so basically, but what this sounds like though is like we are calling out to the Borg so that we can continue to be assimilated. And we are hoping and praying that one day they choose to assimilate us. And that's what I'm hearing when I hear a lot of us, out here celebrating. Like you said, I ain't mad at a win, because, if you're playing football and you have a losing season and you win one game, yeah, pop bottles. But still the rest of the season to go on, and year after year, we got to figure out why we're so Why are we such trash in this game? Like
Right,
we got
right.
take it like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Eventually, they say, you know what, man,
We
all
need
this
to.
losing.
We need to do. We need to change this thing up. We got to restructure this whole thing so we won't lose no more, and you win.
Right.
So we
So
got to do the same thing.
we have to, but here's the thing, right? And this is where my pessimism comes in. Last year, 2020 was the perfect chance for us to change the face of Black America and change the face of Black people all over the planet. And in 2020, most people just sat back and complained about the fact that we were in the lockdown and the pandemic and that they couldn't go out and party. They couldn't go on vacations. And we had some real situations where it really would have benefited us to start turning inward and start building, because people did get access to some, minimal resources, but the minimal resources would have been enough. Collaboration, and we would have a situation right now where you wouldn't have to worry about as much violence happening to our community, because people would see us building power. They would see us building economic power, social power, political power. All those things would have been tied up. But here and there, we have celebrations, victories, just like, and I don't go back 2 years, Joe, in terms of the victory. We were just here in November when you had the election for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to remove Donald Trump. And we had the same type of vigor, the same type of energy. This is going to change the world. And what happened? Less than a month later, a Zoom call is leaked where Joe Biden is telling the Black caucus, listen, I'm not doing shit for Black people. Y'all the reason why this country's going to hell. And he literally, I paraphrased it, but that's what he said. He said this country is going down the drain, and it ain't just because of Black people. You're going to have Mexicans here too, Spanish people, but basically what he said was that Black people are the reason that the country's going down the drain. So don't expect any benefits. And since he's been elected, he's been passing presidential order after presidential order, getting mounting up the Congress and getting all these different bills passed, stimulus after stimulus, but nothing specific for Black people. But yet and still, the Black people that wanted to vote for him are not being even accountable today in regards of what benefits we haven't reaped from him yet. And so, we have this whole concept of, and I think we as a community, we have been locked into this whole notion of being a perennial victim and drawing power from victimhood, because once you stand up on your own 2 feet and start punching back, you're no longer a victim. But there's some of us who profit, prosper, and benefit off of the whole notion of being victims. And we have too many of them who are in places all over the country whispering in the ears of the masses. And so they'll be on a social media platform tomorrow talking about what a victory this was. They'll be somewhere, having a rally talking about how we got justice for George Floyd and all this other stuff. But yet and still, when you really roll it all back, we are still not making any progress. And even for people who want to be social reformers, political reformers, where's the progress at there? You're not seeing any progress. In fact, it is public policy that no laws or policies or benefits are granted strictly to Black people, Africans in America. You can check all the way down the list. You can't find any policy that specifically benefits Black people. And that goes back to even this. This won't even be a precedent-setting case.
Right, man. So real quick, let's look at some numbers, and given context that all of the crimes that police officers commit are not reported because they don't have to be. But from the numbers and information that we got, and this is from this Bowling Green State University. This is a research on duty shootings. Huh?
Wall Street.
This is on duty shootings. Police officers charged with murder or manslaughter from 2005 to 2019. It says since the beginning of 2005, there have been 104 non-federal sworn law enforcement officers with the general powers of arrest That means police officers, deputies, sheriffs, state troopers who have been arrested for murder or manslaughter resulting from an on-duty shooting where the officer shot and killed someone at incidents throughout the United States. Of those 104 officers to date, only 35 have been convicted of a crime resulting from the on-duty shooting, 15 by guilty plea, 20 by trial, and none convicted by a bench trial. In the cases where an officer has been convicted, if the offense for a lesser crime, it is often for a lesser crime. Excuse me. Only 4 officers have been convicted of murder. There were 4 officers who were murder convictions overturned, but the officers were later convicted of federal crimes arising out of the same incident. The 4 officers convicted of murder received incarceration sentences that range from 81 months to 192 months in prison, with an average length prison sentence of 150.75 months. As to the other officers, 9 were convicted of manslaughter, 4 were convicted of voluntary manslaughter, 5 were convicted of involuntary manslaughter, 2 were convicted of official misconduct, 2 were convicted of reckless homicide, 3 were convicted of negligent homicide, 5 were convicted of federal crime deprivation of civil rights, including 4 officers whose murder convictions were overturned, and 1 was convicted of reckless discharge of firearm. The 18 officers convicted of manslaughter received incarceration sentences that range from 0 months to 480 months in prison, with an average sentence of 75.8 months in prison. So just give you that little context right there. And remember, most of the cases ain't reported. But go ahead, Pat.
No, I was just gonna say I think that speaks to the novelty that I was talking about, which to me is why it makes sense for people to perk up at a conviction.
Right.
And I want to make it
Right.
clear. I'm not saying that I don't get people perking up about a conviction. It doesn't happen that often. I mean, we honestly have we have eclipses more frequently than we have police officers convicted of murdering black people in the community. And every single time we have an eclipse, it's an event. So
Damn,
my
that's a
thing
hell
is
of a fact.
my
Wow.
my thing is just like let's again people again temper don't temper your realities or even your expectations, because I think you should expect to be treated well. I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to fight, for those of you that do honestly expect to be treated well, because I do agree with PC. I think a growing segment of Black America does not expect to be treated any differently than we're treated, and those people have a level of apathy that pretty much means that they're not good for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is different to acknowledge the reality of the situation, which is what most realists do, and to literally just expect and embrace and accept that you're going to be treated subhuman. Those are two different things. But my thing is just, it doesn't happen that often, but that doesn't mean that when it does happen, it's monumental, it's momentous, it's groundbreaking, it's earth shattering, or it's paradigm shifting.
Right.
Sometimes it just means that it happened. And I think that's where the long-term view comes into play. And I understand everybody's not going to have a macro view of this situation. Most people live in the micro, they're going to die in the micro. And for them, this one instance is all they need to die happy and to be able to say that, you know what I'm saying, we've had victories. The moment within 5 minutes of the verdict being announced, you had articles coming up talking about why this matters.
But I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
But you're lying to yourself, and you're getting yourself hyped up only to be stressed out once this comes back around, because the actual structural problem has not been fixed.
And that's what.
Well,
go ahead.
Whoa. It's not a structural. It's not a structural problem if the system is working the way it was designed to work. You got to remember, the first police officers were overseers.
Right, but it's a problem to us though. Well, from that standpoint. But I get what you're saying. You are right, because they created this system to be oppressive.
Well, hold on, Joe, and let's just be real. We're looked at as pests in this system. A pest is not. It's like, a pest is something that aggravates you. A pest is an annoyance. It might serve a purpose. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, the pest is not the priority. It's the
Right.
system as a whole. So I get what you're saying in terms, so what I'm saying is there's no fixing this. There's no fixing this if you want to stay in the current regime power structure. There's no fixing this. The only thing you can do is turn yourself into a power that makes people think twice before they harm somebody under your protection. So you'll never, because you look at what's happening right now, for instance, with the anti-Asian hate policy that's going on around right now. They have a nation to the point where if you're black anyway, and you perform some type of harm towards them, that they're creating right now a new crime bill to protect those people. Why? Because they got to answer to China. Now, I'm not going to get into the fact that white folk over here killing Asians and nothing's happening to them, but just for the argument's sake, we don't have those types of protections for us. And because we don't have those types of protection for us, I keep losing the camera. Because we don't have those types of protection for us, we consistently are going to be staring down the barrel.
But that's what I'm saying.
Crosshairs of the nation. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. Like I use my analogy. You can't clean dishes in a dirty sink. You got to throw the whole sink away and start over.
I'm about to say, because you can clean dishes in a dirty sink, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm not eating off them dishes. But it's like, and I get what you're saying about that, by us being a pest. But as pest, I don't want, like, you spraying Raid on me ain't a good thing for me. But as a pest, I'm supposed to aggravate you. I'm supposed to do that. And I do agree we need to turn ourselves into a power, which would make us an even stronger pest. But going from being a pest to an actual foe, to actual something that's going to be respected. And right now, the pattern of behavior that we have, we're never going to be looked at any different, because they know the patterns that we are set in. They manipulate our emotions all the time. They already know we got a 2-week to a month wave. They already know these things. So it's all right. We have to, I'm gonna say it again, not lose focus of the greater picture. Don't just get bogged down on this. Don't have tunnel vision on this. It's like this is the end all be all. No, it's one victory within the greater battle. Got to look at that. I'm gonna keep saying that because it has to be hammered home.
And here's, like I said, and I hate to keep coming back to this. Is it a victory if they throw the game?
Well, no. I mean, it's like we say, for the Floyd family, this day victory.
No, for the Floyd family, I get it.
Right.
But even still, they threw the fight. This is why nobody really respects Rocky Marciano's 48-0 record as an undefeated fighter, and because the mob literally pulled up on everybody and said, yo, you go down in the 5th round. You go down in the 3rd round. If you throw a punch, boom, 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 make it look good, but then get knocked out on this round. So this, and I say that because I say they threw this trial. Because, and they threw the trial, I mean, they put up a very weak defense.
Yeah, the defense was trash.
The offense, the prosecution was overkill. I mean, they brought 6 to 7 different witnesses, expert witnesses, who all said the same 4 or 5 different things over and over again. It was overkill. They created such an avalanche in terms of evidence against the cop, and honestly, you really didn't need all that. Like I said, you had the film, which clearly showed what happened. That film would have been enough to convict you and me in the first 2 days of the damn trial after jury selection. Right? There have been opening arguments, 2 or 3 witnesses, and then the jury would have went home, ate a ham sandwich, came back, and came up with a verdict. So I get what you're saying. because overall we're saying the same thing. This still is minimal in the grand scheme of things that need to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, I agree. I think, and I said the same thing. I think I think the trial was a farce, and not in a bad way or anything like that for the family. You know, it's great that they got justice, but
right?
the trial was a show. You know what I'm saying? The trial was meant to do more than give justice to the Floyd family. The trial was meant to quiet down not just black people, but we often forget how big the George Floyd the George Floyd protests were.
It was
You're
visual.
talking about global protest.
Yeah.
This was a show for the world to let them know that, you know what I'm saying, America is not what y'all think it is. It's not what we've presented ourselves to be. We got ourselves in order. We got our people in check. If anybody commits it, and I think in large part the election of Joe Biden following the Trump election absolutely played a role in the show that was this trial,
Mm-hmm.
because it's yet another statement saying that, look, it's a different regime in charge and things are going to go in a different direction than they had been going, at least in the public space, in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where I keep coming back to, look, I'm not telling nobody not to be happy. What I'm saying is be vigilant. Like, you know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Stay
Make
focused.
sure that you stay focused on the goal. This trial, it's not no sort of no, it's not really a measure of American society. And both you guys already know how I feel about that. I do feel like we focus too much on individual incidents and not enough on the totality of the numbers, which to me is what keeps me grounded. I think people get excited about this because when they think about black deaths and unjust treatment, they think Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Amadou Diallo, and like 5 or 6 other people. And then they say, yeah, but we got George Floyd though. And then they forget about the hundreds of thousands of people in between those that never made national headlines,
Right.
that were murdered, beaten, raped, abused, had their rights violated, humiliated,
Right.
belittled, or otherwise treated in a matter that's inhumane at the hands of police officers on or off duty. You forget about all those people because you're focused on the national headlines. So when you get one win, you say, oh, we won out of 10. No, you're one out of a couple 100,000 over the last 50,
Yeah.
60 years.
Get it. Hey man, don't let these narratives fool you. Get with the facts, not the narratives.
Well, it's like, and that's a perfect example too, Pat. You know, we can put in a football analogy, right? If we say as a football player, as a team that has a tradition of losing, you bring in the new coach, and the first game you getting your ass smacked around, 42-0, and then you happen to get a sack, and the guy that gets up after the sack and does like a touchdown dance, does like an end zone dance, right,
Like,
right,
what you doing?
right, right. And that's where we are right now. To go back to the rest of the game, you're still getting smacked around. And then when you find out that, I got a sack, but that was the third string quarterback because the game was out of concept. You know, the game was out of reach at that point. We really do need to and this is why I say, you know, as a community, people, we all need therapy to truly
We do.
understand how dearth the situation is in our community in regards to the effects of being just under the power of some psychomaniacal twisted tyranny that has generated so much dysfunction that the one time we see things go right, we assume that they're going to go right every time forward, and that's dysfunction in itself. We really have to draw back, and this is why sometimes I pull back, and we all do. We pull back, and we all, you know, take our fast from social media so we don't get caught up. Because I've seen a lot of people who you would think you can have these types of conversations with just today, celebrating. They practically out popping bottles. Even at the outside of the courthouse, you had people talking about we're going to have a barbecue tonight. This is and it's still to the point where it bothers me, but it probably shouldn't, that we have such a juvenile reaction to everything, that as soon as we get a win, we want to have a party. As soon as and we're not taking, it's like we don't really take the seriousness, even if you wanted to use this as a milestone, right? If you wanted to use this case, this case of this officer being arrested, prosecuted, and convicted on all 3 charges, even if you wanted to use that as a milestone, we're still not grasping the importance of the next step, the next leg in this journey. What will this benefit us? What will it possibly cost us? What will we have to deal with? Because in all these cities around the country where Black people live, there was armed National Guards in every city around the country, anticipating this thing going left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were anticipating this thing going left. And
that lets you know something.
Yeah.
That lets you know something.
And typically they're 10 steps ahead of us. So typically they know things we don't. But in regards to the future, where does this leave us now? And I agree with you, Pat, in the grand scheme of things, this is something that's meaningless, specifically if people take this as the Super Bowl. If people look at this as our Super Bowl, then they are definitely out of scope, out of focus in regards to that. And then this will be the same group, like, damn, we can't have nothing. Once again, juvenile reaction. We can't have nothing. We can't have a victory here. We can't have a party here. Listen, the fight is still going. This is warfare. And we got one small win. It's like, cleaning up, and we picked up a speck of dust or grain of sand. And to everybody that's not a part of the George Floyd family, and I'll even go one step further. The people who were there that day that had to suffer through that, this is a win for them. I'll give them that. The people that were actually on the scene and who are actually there, who are going through serious trauma right now because they all believe that they allowed a man to die on their watch, I'll give them that. This is a win for them too. But for the masses of us, shoot, don't tell me that you're dealing with trauma from the George Floyd case when you can watch somebody get shot on your block and go back in the house and put on your pork chops. You know what I'm saying? I can't deal with that perpetual victimism.
I'll take it this far, even, and this will be kind of one of the last things I say on it in public. First off, being somebody that's dealt with a good amount of trauma, and I know everybody deals with trauma differently, but if this man being convicted makes you want to celebrate or be excited or go party or barbecue or anything like that, then I would say that you're not appropriately connected anyways, because a man still lost their life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody still died. Like, a family is still grieving. A community is still grieving. And a nation is still fighting with itself about how exactly they're going to press forward. And when I say that, I'm not talking specifically about the American government. I'm talking about the various people of various races here in America that feel like something needs to be done to make things better for everybody. And in that, I do give credit to the small minorities of other people that do feel like things need to be better. Know what I said? I didn't say better for Black people. I said better. Know what I said. All right. So I take issue even with people saying, I'm finna pop a bottle. I'm excited. He going to jail. Yeah, but the family is still grieving. What are you excited about? Why are you happy? What and you didn't even live on that part of the country. The people that's gonna kill your family members potentially are still on your block. They still in your street. They still driving in their uniforms and in their cars, and they clocking in and getting paid right now. And they not gonna think twice about doing what they do. What they're gonna think twice about is how they maneuver as they doing it, so that they don't get caught on camera looking crazy. Because here's the other thing, right? We always talking about we deal with this all the time with corporal punishment. Parents say whooping your kids doesn't teach them right from wrong. It teaches them how to be sneakier with about doing what they want to do anyways. Right? So if that's the viewpoint we have towards disciplining children, it's the same viewpoint we should have towards disciplining culture in general. If disciplinary action doesn't prevent an activity, it just makes a person more sneaking and cunning in how they do it. And we know with regards to the police departments that that's the truth. Again, right. I say, what is the purpose of getting excited about this? And then again, one other thing is I know it's a win for the family. And I agree with you, PC, and that's a great point. It's a win for the people that are dealing with that real trauma of having watched a man die within distance of them being able to reach him and potentially save his life. That is real. And all of their families have had to deal with them having to deal with that trauma as well. So it definitely circles outward. But for the rest of you guys with no real connection other than the fact that you watch trauma porn so much that you got some sort of sexual dysfunction out of it, you know what I'm saying? There's, you don't have a right to be celebrating what happened right now. And if I was one of those family members, your celebration would be a slap in my face. And if you getting mad about what we're saying, I use the words of Dr. John Henry Clark. Don't get mad, get smart, and prove me wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you really must say it all right there.
I ain't got nothing to say, because I mean, how else can I say don't lose sight of the greater picture? I don't know no other way to say that. We saying it. So,
well, it's the yeah, Pat, you just dropped the mic on that one. You know what I'm saying? We need that sound effect, the mic drop. But when you really, and I think that it's important to take from this what you just said. We have work to do. You don't celebrate till the job is done. Last I checked, white supremacy still kicking our ass. Last I checked, we got hit harder from COVID economically than anybody else. Last I checked, violence is up in every major city where Black people reside as a majority population. Last I checked, police are still killing. I mean, you just had within the last month a police killing at the White House, shooting somebody with a knife at the White House. Okay, you had the brother that got killed out there in Manhattan Center. You know, you have all of these different situations where we're still getting hurt and harmed. And though, like you said earlier, Pat, in places that, you know, nobody will report these, because it's such a common occurrence. I mean, Joe, you cited all the stats. What more is there to say? That, you know, and this is why I always talk nationalism, but I only talk it to a select few people now, because I realize that everybody doesn't want Black nationalism. As you stated earlier, Joe, most people still are feigning for white acceptance. And that's including the majority of cats in the conscious community, the Black nationalist community, you know, the Pan-African community, all these pseudo-religious communities. You know, they're all clamoring for white acceptance. You know, the white man is still the measuring stick in regards to Black progress to many of us. in this regard, people feel as though they got justice in the white man's system, and we can continue to go back and forth about whether it was justice or not. But I always contend they had to make this decision. He was too blatant with the lynching that took place. And because he was that blatant, he had a disregard. He broke his covenant, his code to the boys in blue. He broke his covenant and code to the white supremacists who take pleasure in having opportunities to lynch black men. And he broke the code to the constitutional oversight of this country, because supposedly this is the land of the free and the brave. But you can't be in the land of the free and the brave when the people who are in charge, the private, the local branch of law enforcement or army, as you would say, are going out there terrorizing and lynching and killing the people and enjoying it in lieu of all those around for all its splendor. You can't have that, because at the end of the day, the devil still needs to have plausible deniability. So I think they made him fall on that sword as a lesson to other cops. Like, if y'all want to do this shit, make sure
tighten up.
Yeah, tighten up. Y'all should have took his ass back. Y'all should have put his ass in the back of a truck and drove him around like y'all did Freddie Gray, if that was the case. Plausible deniability in all these different cases for which a slither of what's unseen can pass around and say, you know what? We have reasonable doubt we can't convict these officers.
Right. I don't have nothing else to add to that. I think we pretty much said what needed to be said that was on our minds about this, and we don't want to keep just saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. So, not telling nobody they can't celebrate, especially the people who were impacted the most. They show victory, but for the most part, can't lose sight of the overall fight that we still in. Because if we do, we're still gonna be right here again next year. So
we are.
Hey man. Freedom Train Podcast Series, www.freedomtrainradio.com. Make sure you check us out. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Share it. Make sure everybody who tuned in like this thing and share this video so more people can see it. And we're gonna keep bringing these things. And make sure y'all check out the next episode of the Freedom Train Podcast Series that's dropping tomorrow. That I interviewed Miss Danielle Harris. So check that out. And we out, man. See y'all later.